Let's say you have your Hebrew Bible in front of you, you open Exodus 20, what do you see? You see a text looking like that, lots of things inside. You can clearly see that this one has no dots. No dots.
And welcome to episode 11 of the Bible in OBRY. That's right, folks. This series goes up to 11. For those of you who appreciated that, thank you. This is the second time that I am attempting to record this Bible in OBRY episode. The first time was yesterday. Just didn't have enough time before I had to go off to work because I am back to doing carpentry on a very limited basis, unfortunately. For anybody who is familiar with Rituxan or has been chopped in chemo language, the recovery time for chop can vary, but I mean, it can be a long time. And Rituxan is just, oh boy, is it a pain in the neck. And it has a lot of really tricky side effects to it. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who would, tell me whatever about it. And they're probably right. Nobody's saying that this stuff is good for you. Cancer's not good for you. But a lot of us have it. And there's got to be a reason for that, right? Something that we could find probably in Deuteronomy. I'm thinking Deuteronomy somewhere in the neighborhood of chapter. See, now I forgot it. I wanted to say it was chapter 32. Couldn't be 23, although I do get really dyslexic sometimes like that. I want to say it's 32 or 33. Here I'm going. Anyways, the state that our fathers and us, it's 28. It's 28. Just found it. Would be in for our disobedience. And here's what I'm starting to conclude. All of us cope with the problems we have, sin problems we have, missing the mark, things that we do that we shouldn't, lusts that we have that we should not have. It's not just a physical thing. Lusts for money and comfort, these lusts to have a security, whether you consciously know it and admit it or not, that is through the beast and not the security that is through our complete trust in Yahweh and trying to extract ourselves from the beast's system. And I know that's not easy. And a lot of people haven't made that easy. They haven't made it clear. A lot of people preach against it, but I want to see systems for Israelites to extract themselves from this beast system and develop support groups. Because, when one person decides, let's say, just take this for example, when one person decides that, not only is income tax, it's not lawful. It was never ratified constitutionally. There's that perspective, but more than that, they realize that the money that's being extracted from them unlawfully is going to all kinds of immorality also. They realize that, and they say, you know what? I shouldn't be paying income tax. It's not lawful. It's not constitutional. It's immoral. Everything about it is against what I know that I should do, and they want to do it. They they determine to do it, they do it, and they're alone. And even if they've really prepared themselves for doing this thing, oftentimes, well, let's be honest, the beast does not like to be defeated. And contrary to what some people assert, that the law of the land, if you want to call it that, can work if you know how to work it, they're obviously not factoring the fact that it's full of criminals. So when a single person decides to do something like that, they oftentimes, even being in the right, get crushed. Get crushed because they don't have numbers with them, watching them, helping them, supporting them, communicating with them. There needs to be an exodus, that is not just Moses fleeing Pharaoh. There needs to be a full exodus of many people in a group support system with one another, because that's what's really going to do it. Now, I'm going to lead that back over to this thing about the blessings and cursings, okay? I'm kind of leaning towards the fact that what we do as individuals is one thing, but what we do as a people is another. Blessings or cursings towards an individual is one thing. Blessings and cursings towards a people is another. And in opposition to this sort of fierce individualism, BS narrative that we've been taught, along with a lot of other lies and nonsense, we aren't fierce individual people. We Israelites are a people, and we are the people of the Most High. So as a people, we are going to suffer for our people. And as a people, we are going to rejoice and be blessed along with our people. This is what so many people don't understand when I get so angry about how we are participating in usurious activity one against another. We are participating in racketeering, gangstering activity, one person against another, our own people, by the way, against each other. We're participating in perpetuating lies against our Elohim, Yahweh. In letting academics and scholars get away with their skullduggery, their chicanery, their nonsense, their lies. As a people, we are allowing our enemies to continue to run their abortion mills, their baby murdering factories. We're allowing it as a people. So these curses come down on a people, not just individuals. So you see people who, you can't always tell. People can keep secrets. You can't always tell everything that's happening behind closed doors, but people, and one thing you can tell by spending time around them or whatever, is that they have a good spirit and a decent one. They may have problems. They may be struggling with some sins. But in general, you can tell, because you have a spirit of discernment, that they are decent, genuine, humble person. Yet they or their home is suffering. And you wonder, what can I do about it? Besides for direct hand help to them, you can do everything in your power to stop our people from all their sins as a people. Because we are linked, woven, knit together as one people. We're made into that by the Most High. So listen, in this episode, I've prepared a document. Now, it is another color document because this season, that's mostly the documents that I'm going to be doing, and there's a great purpose for that. As I explained early on, one of the great purposes is not just understanding the culture, understanding the mindset behind the language of OBRY. Obviously Yahweh used OBRY for about 1,000 years to keep a record of our people. At least that long. So it's really important to understand what mindset he decided would be the most appropriate mindset behind the language. Because every language has that luggage of a mindset that comes with it. That's why it's so unfortunate that the manuscripts that we have publicly of the New Testament are all in Koine Greek, because there is the luggage of a certain pagan sort of Platonic kind of mindset to that, which in my humble opinion is what has bred so many errors that we now share throughout all of the congregation of Israel. Not to mention all the other congregations, whether they think they are Israel or not. So, it's a big deal. And of course, everybody, you can't usually think of prophecy like, apocalyptic prophecy, Daniel, Ezekiel, Revelation, of course, without things having to do with colors. Like Revelation 12. Behold, I saw a great red dragon. Or I was taken to the wilderness, and behold, a great scarlet beast. Right? Or I saw a white horse, and a red horse, a black horse, and a... What's that fourth horse? We're going to talk about that. We'll get to that. And that has a lot of interest to it. And I believe that that is a very big clue as to what the original language of the New Testament was. So, before I start with that, I do want to say something that I know a lot of people don't talk about a lot because they don't want to talk about it a lot, because so many dishonest, robbing, lying, low-life, thieving, no-goodniks like Paul Krause, Benny Hinn. Now, and those are the ones that just almost anyone can look at. The Osteens, the Murdochs, those are the ones that almost anyone can look at and say, of course they're a con. Of course they're a charlatan. But then there's all of those out there that purport to be the conservative leaders, the neo-reformers, who are doing us just as great a disservice. But they're just appealing to the more conservative mind. Because of people like that, those few out there who are doing good work with a full heart, sincere, as best they can, they don't like to bring this up. And I can tell the ones they don't like to. But here's the thing, and this is why I'm going to. It's just a necessity. And there's just a certain amount of logical reasoning behind it. Look, if there's someone, or more than one, if there's some ones who are doing work to help to bring the kingdom as we are to do, to expand the kingdom, to call our people to repentance, to teach our people, since they perish for a lack of knowledge. If you have encountered one or more of these people, and you know through your discernment that they are doing the best they can possibly do, you should support them. I'm not saying you should support me, especially if you don't believe in me. If you don't believe that the work that I'm doing is good, honest, of quality, with sincere, pure intentions, then you shouldn't. You should not support me morally, nor financially. But those people who are, a lot of them, like myself, are very willing and have gone out, worked, and supported their loved ones. That's not a problem that I have. I don't know if other people have that problem where they don't do that. Probably do. But these aren't the people I'm talking about. The people that I'm thinking about, the ones that I truly believe are sincerely doing their best to provide those things to us. Because it is a small minority who does that, and it is a great majority who benefits from it. So I'm thinking of them. I'm not thinking of the cons who, would rather sit and do whatever these things than work with their hands. I personally love working with my hands and doing what I do as a carpenter. I love doing that. But here's the thing. This is the logical thing. So I could either go out and do that, and right now it's limited, but I mean, between that and the home business that my wife and I started during the chemo, and then I have a friend who has a restaurant who lets me deliver there. I do that on the weekend. We're fine. So the thing is, I could do that, which keeps me busy. It keeps me pretty tired. And it gives me a small, very small amount of time to do these things that not only do I love doing, I have an immense amount of passion for doing. It wouldn't matter. It would not matter if the rest of my life, not a person, not one person, financially or any otherwise, helped me. I would still do this because I love doing this. And I love the subject. And not the subject in the sense of things contained in the Bible and the interest that is therein for me, which is a given. It's foregone. I love the mind and being person behind it all. The Most High. So, it really wouldn't matter. I would still keep doing this. What matters is just what time I have. And this is the same thing with the guys out there doing this, working away, who probably love what they do and wouldn't have it any other way. But they have this reality that they have to cope with. And that reality is they have to take care of their loved ones. They have bills to pay. They have responsibilities that must be met. And it's going to be done in one way or another. One way is to put a great deal of your time into doing those common labors. The other way is that if the majority who is benefiting from what the small minority is doing, if the majority just chip in a very small amount. And the funny thing is, up till now, what I've had is actually a very small minority of that huge majority who actually give far beyond what they should be expected to give. There are a whole lot of Israelites out there. And even for those who think they still have that idea that they're simply an Israelite in spirit and not literally the genetic sons and daughters of Jacob Israel. So for you too, there is a huge amount of Israelites out there. And if all of them who believed in that small amount of honest, decent people doing the best they can to study out these things, to work out these things, to bring them to you, then they wouldn't have to spend so much time at their common work doing what we know is our responsibility to do, and we could put far more time into doing this. Out of all the people that I know, who I think are very genuine people, and I'm not going to name them, and most of you probably don't know who that is because I don't typically talk about them. But out of them, I guarantee you, they are extremely stand-up people, and they are going to do what they have to do to take care of their loved ones and their responsibilities before their Elohim God. So, all of the masses of people out there benefiting from what that small amount of people do, you have an opportunity. You have an opportunity to set something up with these people, whomever it is. I know there's got to be at least one person out of all the people that you're being fed from who you believe is genuine. Whether you agree with everything they say or not is besides the point. I don't agree with everybody out there that I know is an absolutely sincere, genuine worker for the kingdom. I don't agree with them all. That's not the point. None of us are going to entirely agree yet. We haven't come to that point yet of unification, full maturity. Okay, that's going to happen. But if you just took that little bit of time to set something up with at least one of them, start with that, just at least one. It doesn't have to be big, but a regular thing. It is huge to the people really working away, the bond servants of Christ, the truth, the word. So, that's my portion of the message on how we take care of each other and interact with each other, and how much each other's deeds and presence affects each other. So in this document, what I've done, I named this audio because I have to name them when I save them as I go, all hues. Because I tried to, and I think I'm pretty successful with covering all the rest of the colors that there are covered, named, translated in the Bible, outside of the big three that I've done so far. The big three, because, gosh, you type in any one of them into a search, specifically like, we'll say like a Blue Letter Bible search, you can type in a word that either in the King James or the New American Standard, because those are the only two translations coded to Strong's. You'll get about a dozen for any one of them. White, black, red. Those were the big ones. The rest of them, these colors, I've condensed down into one document of about 8 pages, and I will be posting that at the OBRY Project website on the resources page just as soon as I can, hopefully before I publish this, but I'm not sure. Besides for metallics and gemstones, which of course we inherit a lot of color names from those things, just check your box of Crayolas. You'll see that I'm telling the truth. That will be the last document I do on colors. Besides for all of the obvious points, which I already mentioned, this was really great in the sense of giving me a very good idea of how to do the word studies in the way that I will be doing them. Now, the first few where I presented them became extremely mechanical, and as I've gone, I've been able to develop a little bit more of a fluent way of presenting these. I hope. And that's what I'm going to do now. This document was on blue, green, yellow, purple, and brown. There were many more words that showed up in a search for those colors. However, I did take the liberty of weeding out the spurious entries, which maybe in the last few, the white, black, and red, I probably should have weeded out more and not even included them or listed them in the document because they were so pathetic. I don't know. We'll see. So, here's how it goes. First, there's blue. Blue, well, without being punny, made me very blue because all the words that I perused and looked into very deeply failed. They failed. I have 2 words under the category of blue listed in the document. The first one is ticolet, H8504. The second one is hubo-ray, H2250. Now, the first one, tikolet, many of you who have heard a lot of Jewish expressions, that it might ring kind of a bell because one well-known Jewish expression is this tikolet olam, which roughly translated from Jewbrew is sort of the perfection of the age in a way, you know. It's their kind of Talmudic idea of what is a sort of perfect consummation. Oh, if they would just turn, since I know what their consummation will be based on the direction they're going. But that's where tikal comes from. Tikolet, you have the ending ta. And oftentimes when words end with that ending ta, you'll find that if you do a search of all of the entries or occurrences of that word, you'll find out that it oftentimes will end with the u-ta, ut. Now, that is commonly denoted in Jewbrew or Masoretic Hebrew as a feminine plural. The thing is, it works sometimes in context if you figure it for a feminine plural, but not all the time. Not all the time. In fact, it's really strange that we're starting with this word tikolet, and that tikal oftentimes is translated as perfection, because I've got more and more of a kind of a sense about this ending ut or t that it's actually more denoting a certain perfection to its root rather than a feminine plural. Or it is doing both things depending on whether it's being attached to what we would call a noun or a verb or a descriptive. Though in OBRY, I think you're looking more at either a thing, which is your noun, or an attribute. An attribute can kind of go either in the way of action or description. So that's more the way, and this is why you can have these things that I was calling complete words for a long time, or universal words, because so many words that are formed in OBRY are particularly like that. They are a thing most times, but they are a thing that is defined by attribute, and attribute is what something does. Whether we're talking about doing or actions that are deliberate or actions that just are, okay? If you say, I'm a white guy, I'm Caucasian, that is an action because it's an attribute. It's not something I'm purposely doing, although I purposely act Caucasian in the sense that I'm not trying to culturally act like somebody else. I'm not sagging my pants or talking stupid or ignorant or just different. But the features, the characteristics that I display as a Caucasian have a lot to do with just the fact that I am a Caucasian, I am an Israelite. Not all Caucasians are, because Noah had 3 sons, and many of the descendants of those 3 sons are still alive on the earth today. However, That's attribute. So attributes, yeah, they can be action, conscious things, or just what you are and actions you do. You know, you could go more into that concerning what somebody does when they are converted, when they are changed from above. Their attributes change. And that's the big sign there too, that people can see even in themselves, is how their attributes change. It's not necessarily you stop committing the same sins or problems altogether, but your attributes change. Your desires change. When your desires change, that means you have actually been transformed at a very rudimentary level. Your attributes change. And so those other things, they're like the things that you do, they change in time. So here's the thing with Tikhlet. It appears 50 times. The problem is the great majority of times that it appears are like in when Yahweh is describing the things to be used for the tabernacle. So it's not really appearing with other words or phrases that are like comparative that can help us out to understand if it's blue or not, you know? Now, it's translated as violet stuff. So according to the Theological World Book of the Old Testament, or the Twat, blue covering the spectrum from brilliant red through deep purple. Now that says nothing. If something can cover the spectrum from blue to brilliant red to deep purple, it is an undefined color, so it tells us nothing. As far as related modern words, I could not find anything that I was okay with even guessing was a related modern word. So that one's just a blanker. Now, as far as actually related OBRY words, there is a pretty good sized list. But I hate to tell you, with as many words as I found that seemed like they probably shared a relatively common root, I still don't know if there's any answers. I'm going to share some with you, and then, you could make up your own mind. But for instance, a cow being food or fuel, or to consume or eat. There's yikal, to have the ability, could or can. There is the kal, which is just ka-el, and you'll see that a lot in words like all and every, but it's very subjective as far as all and every. I mean, it's not. If you say all and you think it's not subjective, you're not thinking about it. Almost every time we say all or every, we do not mean all or every. Now I want you to sit and think about that for a while, because that's exactly how it's used in the Bible. Same thing with if you want to think about the flood of Noah, all the lands were covered. Does that mean all the land in all the world? Need to think about that. Now there's also kale, and you notice I'm not giving you all the strong numbers because that becomes very tedious, and it's in the document. So in kale, just adding the feminine e at the end can mean finished or done. Also consume, it's actually translated a few times as daughter-in-law. Daughter-in-law, figure that one out. Or sheepfold, with the M at the front. Typically M, if you have any word that is leaning more towards an action or attribute action, and you put that M there, it sort of concretes it as a thing. This is nearly 100% of the time. It's quite a phenomenon. So it's mekala, sheepfold or enclosure. So you have kul, which has the middle u, nourish, feed, sustain. Sounds a lot like akal, doesn't it? All right, following right up on the heels of that, there's shakul, being without child, bereaved, without child, not a laughing matter. Shakalim, same thing, bereaved, without child. Now here's where this idea that I was telling you about, the whole idea of feminine plural, rules of Jubru. Masculine plural, same thing. You'll see that with the I and M at the end. So one of the most common ways that you'll see it, where people get, I believe, the wrong idea, is when they see it and they hear it in the pronunciation, the Masoretic pronunciation, Elohim, which in the OBRY pronunciation it would be Alayim, kind of like Allah and Yem, Alayim. As far as I'm concerned, with everything that I have seen, that im at the end of, yeah, in a way, it can serve as a plurality. However, I find it far more often also serving as a state of being. Now, stay with me on this. So, here's the different mindset that I've been going on and on about, that we're going to have to achieve if we truly want to understand what we're being told through the vehicle of the OBRY language. If you, let's say, you take an action, any action, I don't know, man, to run, let's say. All right, well, in English, you could kind of say, if you wanted to relate that someone was either for a long time or continually doing that activity, which could be seen as an attribute, especially if they were a runner. In English, we might say, running. So that's the present tense verb. But it's pretty much, you don't really have any parameters as far as when they started or when they stopped. If you wanted to express that they have a certain state of being, one way, if we didn't have that present tense verb, is actually put it in a state of what we would call plural. So, as weird as it may sound in English, think of it like if you could say, what's the best example here? If you could think of run as an activity or attribute and extend that out, instead of in the way that we express it as a present tense running, in the plural, okay? Think of it like that. Think of being able to express run as a verb in the plural, because that is the tool you have to express that action attribute is ongoing. And that is precisely how I have witnessed this im or im suffix that they call masculine plural being used. So apply that to alayim, And instead of the masculine plural, which has led many people to cite it as proof that Yahweh, or God, is a trinity, that is actually telling us that he is in state of action attribute. All right, a little bit of a rabbit trail, but still, these are important things that I'm discovering. So you also have kali, belongings or things, and when you consider that the ich, or in Jubru, the yad, at the end is quite often possessive, and kul is that subjective whole every. It makes a lot of sense. There's also nakal, meaning beguile or deceive, and that is with a K, nakal. There is sakal, be foolish or a fool, shakal, wise, instruct, and finally tikalit. That is your ender perfection. That's where they get that tikol olam, okay? So not only did I have nothing contextually, that was a comparative that could tell me that this was any color. I've got almost nothing as far as related words that are giving me any kind of indication of color at all. So I'm going to go along a little bit with what I wrote as my conclusion. So I said fail due to, for one, lack of comparative evidence, as I just said. Nothing could be found remotely indicates color at all. And plus, like I told you, I can't find any related modern words. And I've come up with a very efficient system of being able to sort of cross-check phonetics, because any sound in OBRY could have been altered over the years phonetically, and I find that happening a lot. So, if you could find a positive association with completion, end, or perfection, and the color blue, that would be something. Now, it is true that, if you win at a 4-H fair or something, you get a blue ribbon. And blue is oftentimes kind of associated with, number 1. So maybe there's something there, but still, culturally, I cannot find it. I can't find it etymologically in modern words, nor culturally. If somebody finds something, let me know. So, even with words like 8500, which is tikayim, and it's translated as peacock, that's unproven. There's a couple of words that are translated as peacock. They could be anything. The only possible connection is H5601, sapir, which is translated as sapphire. It's just a transliteration. It has some uses that indicate could be blue, maybe. We'll get into that in the next document where I do metals and gems. But that's it. 50 entries of Tikalat and no proof, none, that it's blue or purple, or as the twat, the spectrum of blue to brilliant red to deep purple. There's nothing. So I can't say. But the thing is, I can't positively affirm that it's any color, much less blue, deep red, or purple. So it failed. Now, the only other one that was listed here under blue was hubo-ray, which has 7 occurrences. They translate it as stripe, wound, bruise, or blueness. Probably having a lot to do with, if you get a mark or cut wound, that sort of bruising, right? The problem is, as far as modern phonetics, words that would possibly have a relationship through their phonetics, the words I found were like haberdasher, habeas corpus, habiliment, from Proto-Indo-European habir and habilitate, hibernate, hybrid, hubris, hip, or from Latin German, hypo. Now, hopefully you're going to see why I even listed those and what they might have to do with this word H2250, hubo-ray. The related words, mostly in the Hob family as far as a biglyph root, Hob, that is the ha and the be. Now, Hob by itself is a root, is translated often as bosom, like concealed within. Also, haba, with the ah at the end, to hide oneself as if to tuck or weave. Now, a lot of these translations I am adding to because I've seen that the things that I add are far more accurate than the things that you're going to get as the way they're translated, or even twat references. And I wouldn't trust, personally, this is just me, fine, you can feel however you want. I wouldn't trust Gleason Archer at all. Anyways, there's habab, love, possibly intertwined, which is why the double be at the end. And there's other words for love that I find to be far more accurate. There's ha-be, to hide. Habiyun, a hiding place. Or here we go with the M prefix, mahaba, a hiding place. Now there's also Habur. Now that's one of the rivers that the 10 northern tribes were carried off to by Ashur in Kings, 2 Kings. It said they were carried off to a couple of rivers in the area, the general area of Ashur, Ashureh. Because that feminine, so-called feminine in Jubru, ending, indicates not an exact, it's like if you shot at a target, you hit the target, but you kind of hit it at the outside instead of the bullseye. That would be the ending. Now they're carried off to a couple of rivers, the Hala and Habur. Okay, so there you have Habur with the U before the air. Those could be tributaries of the Hadquil, which is oftentimes translated as Tigris, which is not the Tigris. Well, there's also Habath, to beat or thresh. There's Habal, to take a pledge or destroy. Now think of that like as in hobbling. Yes, and it even sounds like hobbling, doesn't it? Habal. There's Habal as in a region. It's actually used as a region. It's translated sometimes as a region. Think of it in the same way. To restrict movement. Habal. You have it again in 2258 as a pledge, again, to hobble. This is what really should be seen. Now, it is also used in 2259, hobble, as a sailor or seaman. Again, think of it having to do with restricting your movement or duty, restricted duty. What do they say that what sailors or seamen have when they get to port and they're allowed to leave? They have liberty. Because they're hobbled to that ship and duty on that ship. This is why laws of the sea, they're so much different than laws on the land. Extremely different. That's why the enemy wants to keep us in that law system, the law of the sea. Now, chabak means, is translated embrace. Also, the folding of the hands, as in possibly hiding or more like weaving the hands. So you have habar with just the air at the end, joined together to couple. It's also translated a lot as a charmer. But again, meaning to fold or tuck together. It could be a companion or fellow. You have habar barat, translated as spots of a leopard, but it's more likely stripes, as in the 2266 root, fold or couple, like you would do with your fingers. There's habash, a saddle, or to tie or bind. There's sabah, to draw out, like likely to lasso, or loops made from a weaved or roped material. And finally, sahabe, which is translated as cast clout. You'll see it, for instance, when the prophet Jeremiah was in what they did was they had space literally below their dungeons, because their dungeons had floors, obviously. And at least part of it was built over or had beneath it, for whatever reason, whether it was because of water runoff or the condition the ground was in, or if there was sewage conditions, they had literally lowered him down into that disgusting mire. This is what this prophet went through. If you think you're having a bad day. And it said they lowered down, and they'll say cast clouts. Well, it's likely what it was were things that they looped or stitched together. And it's got that hab root. Again, like the word that we're looking at, hubo-ray. Now it failed. It failed due to total lack of evidence that this word has anything to do with color at all. It's used once as blueness in Proverbs 20:30, and it's unjustifiable. Now, I had to lean towards its biglyph root of hab, simply because of the form of the word. Kind of dictated it, the hab root was kind of screaming in that form. Now, the root hab, in the sense that it probably has a heck of a lot more to do with stitching, folding together, hiding in some forms, which is exactly why I chose certain English words like haberdasher, habeas, habiliment, habir, or hypo. It, along with words like lab, which is translated as heart or inner man, challenges my thus far assumption that the beh at the end of the word means outward or away from the root, in the same way that the beh at the beginning of the word means to the root or in. Like, for instance, the most common word for come or bring or brought is ba or bua or bia, all having the sense of coming in. But if you think of something like Reb or Rahab, the sense is outward, much, broad, all having a very outward connotation. But it did fail. So again, I've got nothing that alludes to blue. Now, there is one thing. Blue is one of the most uncommon natural colors. It is in nature. I mean, of course, we see it in the sky. We see it in certain flowers. We see it in a few animals, and we see it in the eyes of Israelites, Noahites, Adamites. But it's not a common natural color. It doesn't mean it doesn't appear in the Bible. I mean, for all I know, in Revelation chapter 17 or 18, when the author, John the Revelator, not necessarily John the Apostle, but John the Revelator, is taken out to the wilderness, and he sees the scarlet-colored beast. He sees the great prostitute riding on the back of the scarlet-colored beast, and he describes her, and he says she was adorned. And the words that you're usually going to see is adorned in purple and scarlet and linen. Now, I don't know if what he was seeing was this whore wrapped in red, white, and blue, as is many of the flags of the country that this whore has taken over in the past 3 to 5 centuries. I don't know. But it's just something to consider. Now I'm going to move to green. I liked green because, look, most of our natural world has got green in it. So green's got to show up, man. There's got to be a green. There was. I was happy. And it's actually a big family that got the pass on green here. I did list one because of its... I'm not sure. But I listed it in part just to show you that there's a problem with the fact it's H3 and it's listed as ab. Well, first off, it only appears twice, and it appears as bab both times. Be, a, be. 2 times. It's translated as greenness, fruits, or always, actually just greenness or fruits. Modern related word? Maybe. Baby. Maybe baby. Now, the related OBRY words, possibly, bua or ba, just as I had said, come and enter, or ab, father, progenitor. Ab is something that I've been looking at a lot more lately. I don't know if ab may possibly be a word that has a great deal to do with, how should I say, strength of emotion in a way. But this word, of course, failed. No contextual support, no word support. I mean, it may well mean green or fresh, but the evidence, it's just not there. If I were right about second position B, meaning the opposite to the word, as in the first position B that I just talked about, then it would be possible that it refers to something perennial or evergreen. Ab. But even so, there's no hard evidence yet to prove such a thing. If my theory is correct concerning the effect of be, depending on the placement within the word, it could account for how Babel, H891, derived its name from Balal, H1104, as in, maybe adding the first position be and dropping the latter L signals perpetuity of confusion. The next ones are winner, winner, chicken dinner. It's Iraq or Uric. H3418. It's part of a family. There's a lot of entries that have some form of this word, and I included as entries 2 others, H3387, which is Iruk, with that middle U, and then H3422, Urekrek. Now, Urekrek was a fail, Uruk was a pass, and I'm going to go over why, but let's get to the root Urek. Now, it was a pass, even though Urek itself only occurs 6 times and Uruk 1 time. As I said, there are variations that speak very definitely in its favor. So the only thing is this. All right, it is translated as green, greenness, green plants, greenery. But I couldn't find any modern words that I thought really had strong phonetic connection to it. Now, its related words, obviously, I just named Uruk and Urekrek. So with Uruk, it's translated as green thing. It's 1 time and is likely a reference to flora, grass or leaves. Here's the thing with Urekrek. It's translated as greenish or yellow. But the thing is, it likely means just shaggy growth. In the same way as flora is shaggy growth, but it is the context that it appears in. It appears in context, actually, funny enough, with the word adamdam. Now, adamdam, I concluded from the red study that likely means kind of very red. But here with Urekrek, I'm saying that I don't necessarily think it means very green, but there's a reason for that. And we're going to see that with the roots of rek. Now, when I say rek, remember, it's spelled I-er-kwa. It's not the ka or our K. And sometimes I call it ku, like our Q. Iraq. So I should actually be vocalizing that in the back of my throat when I say that to you. Sorry. Should be more yirok. Yirok. Okay? As opposed to if there was a ka at the end, it would be yirek. Yirok. Yirek. I know. It seems almost like splitting hairs, but it's not. We don't want there to be phonetic diaphones. That's bad. That's how we got from Kaiser to Caesar. Okay? So, what else? Rek. Just the simple rak or rik, which is draw out, empty, pour forth. Or rik, empty, vein, as in poured out. There is rikut, lean-fleshed, flesh part added in the translation, or just the simple rak, only, or except, or spittle. Now, they're not my translations, and I'm not sure exactly what likely, or yirak, to spit, rakak, so that's a double ku at the end. Again, translated as spittle. There's a number of them translated as spittle. Now, this is an interesting one that I haven't come to terms with exactly yet why that is. You're going to see as we see these other Yirak and Rak related words. Okay, so there's also 3419 Yirak, which is translated herbs or green herb, which I think again is accurate. Now there's Yirakun, mildew, paleness. This again is how they're translated. This is not my translation necessarily. There is Barak, lightning, glittering sword. Also Barakut, gem, possibly a carbuncle or emerald, but they cannot prove that, by the way. There is Mirak, to scour or polish, likely similar to the correct rendering of rak, as in thin or empty vessel. So, if rak is normally a thinness, as in an attribute being, thin, or gaunt, which basically through implication can have a great deal to do with forage or fauna or grass. Adding that M prefix should certainly turn an attribute like that thinness or gauntness into a thing. And so I find it very odd that that Strong's is going to, or the translators use it as scour or polish, because they should be translating that into a thing. Now, with H7385, Marak turns into broth, but I checked that out, and it's far likely that it's actually greens, as in a salad or cooked greens. There's also rakad, meaning, or translated as dance, skip, or leap, but possibly to flutter as a leaf with intent or direction. Think about it that way, because we have the de in it. The de, I'm finding more and more, is almost like the equivalent of an arrow pointing forward, meaning to have direction to something. It works. It works a lot. We'll see that more later. Not in this study, but as we go. There is Rakha with the feminine ending. It's translated temple of the head, but likely more as in the hollow. There's Rakha, which is translated as an apothecary or to prepare or to mix, possibly in a mortar and pestle. And it has many forms, and sometimes it's translated as spiced, ointment, apothecary, confectionery, all with basically the same intent, meaning, form. And then the last one, and one of my favorite examples of the root, rak, rakio, the firmament. Also related, rako, thin, beaten leaves, as in gold leaf. Or more properly, yirako, the action of beating into thin plates. Because when you put that I, or the Jubru yad, at the front, it's showing you there is action, there is power. Okay? And then there's rako, again, a broad, thin plate. So, I passed it. I passed it because it is always in about every context that I checked it in, and I checked it in every possible context. It passed. Now, the thing is, in OBRY, there are a few different word forms that I found to be consistent. One is a word form that uses glyphs that are interacting with one another to convey a concrete thought. Another is to use that same concrete thought to relay an abstract thought or action. And then another way is to actually use the glyphs in a way that is sort of like either a visual or a phonetic onomatopoeia. Okay? And I think likely in this form that it is an abstract based on a concrete. The concrete being the thinness. Now, I still haven't figured out the R necessarily. Air. It looks like our modern R. Sounds like it too. But I am leaning very hard towards it having this sense of eminence, importance. I do think it has something to do with man, but not always, because look, you'll see it in words like air, and that's just an and an air, or R, air. And air is translated, and in my opinion correctly, mountain. You'll see it in a lot of things. You'll see it in Ra, as in acknowledge. It's translated as look or see a lot, but acknowledge is more appropriate. R, so and air, R, it's kind of like spreading, like large, puffing, spreading. You see it in words like rapa, which can mean to heal or in health, or a giant. In a sense, like someone who is fully vertical, in good health and good spirits, rapa. So I haven't decided necessarily, but it does have a certain eminence to it that might have a lot to do with man. And the ku, or kwa, much to do with dividing, which makes sense when we look at our modern Q, having that circle representing a hole with the line straight through it. So in that way, you can see how rock would have much to do with something being thin. And then applying that in the abstract to foliage, forage, grass, leaves, and so on and so forth. It does have an overwhelming relationship to forage and thinness, plants, bushes. But again, your rack, it didn't pass because they want to say it's yellow or green. But if you look at the passages and it's describing something, a sore or skin condition, you can see how the shaggy nature of it would have a lot more to do with, because it's got the double rek. It's not like a dam. A dam has the double dam. Dam is the part of that word that we know is red because dam is blood. I know it's a little bit tricky, but this is why, as according to me, it didn't pass. Other people might have a different opinion. This entry may have failed in lieu of like safer, thin, gaunt, made thin definition, but it does have the overwhelming green or leafy associations. They're all over the place. Now, here's where it's really interesting. Okay, this provides additional proof that at least Revelation was originally penned in OBRY. Due to the fourth horse of chapter 6, verse 8 of Revelation being in the Koine Greek, it's chloros. Now, the fourth horse, we know every horse up to that point is described as a color, and there is a certain action that comes with each one of those colors. The fourth one that you're usually going to see, they're going to translate as a pale horse, right? It's a pale horse. Some might actually even say gaunt. Some might say spotted or speckled. Okay? No. The Greek word is chloros. Think about chloros. Chloros. What do we know? Chlorophyll. Chlor. It's got a green connotation. Chloros. Fourth horse. I think it probably should be, if they're going to be consistent, green. But the whole reason why whoever put it into Greek, Koine Greek, chose chloros is because when they had the original document that John the Revelator wrote in OBRY, he was using one of these related Yirak words, which could be taken as green in the abstract or thin and gaunt in the concrete. So whomever did it chose chloros. It is a clue. There are many clues in the New Testament. That's one that they chose chloros. So that horse is supposed to be thin and gaunt. There's really no other more appropriate words than those with that rak basis root. The next most likely one is actually desha, because of what it describes. Now, there was a few more that I did list, and they're not serious, and I'm not really going to spend any real time on them. There was H3768, which is karpas. It has one appearance. It's translated as green. The related possible related modern words could be garb, gird, girt, girdle, posh, fascia, or fasces. Why? Why did I use garb, gird, girt? Because phonetically, K sounds can be changed over time to a G sound or vice versa. And now its related OBRY words, basically none. It just failed. It failed because of its single appearance in the infamous Esther chapter 1. Anything that falls in Esther chapter 1, I'm immediately suspect of. I do go to the text. I do try it. I do examine it. But it's a bad start. When it's got one appearance and it's in Esther 1, it's usually off the table. But it is likely, based on what it even looks like. A fabric frill from a compound of kar, H3733, and pus, H6446. Now the next one is H7488, Ronan. It's a fail. Ronan is a fail, and it appears 20 times. It's translated, and it's spelled R-O-N-N, Ronan. It's translated as to grow, luxuriant, fresh, or green. Possible related modern words: wrong, erroneous. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Or onanism. And I don't know. I just put it in there. I'm not sure exactly why I did. See, onanism, for anybody who's not aware, onanism is a term that is used in place of masturbation, because the English transliteration of the son of Judah that went into his brother's wife was supposed to give her a son after his brother's name. He was a wretched man. He was the son of a woman that Judah had taken of the daughters of Canaan. And at the point of orgasm, he pulled out and he spilled his seed on the ground, basically not in her, thus fulfilling his duty to raise up children in his brother's name. They would have his brother's name. They wouldn't be considered his children, but it was his duty to do so. So they call masturbation an onanism, and I think that's very, very misleading and faulty. However, go through just a couple of things here, right? Related OBRY words is 7451 row. Now here we're back to the air or R, right? Row used a lot and is translated as evil or bad. That's where we get our modern word evil, is from this row. Well, here's the crazy thing about row. I'm going to go through some of the associated, very closely associated words with row. Bad, evil, noise, associate, companion. That's right. Row is translated as thought. And in many of these instances, it works contextually. It's translated as badness, wickedness, right? But how about when you put the or Jubru feminine ending, roe, you get herdsman or keeper of sheep. Roe, friend, either male or female. Roe, broken. How about ro'ut, another male friend, or ro'ut, vexation? Ro'i, pasture. Roe, shepherd. Ro'ia, attendants, companions, or ro'iun, vexation. That's right. That many parsed out entries of that root, row. Now, you have nun, which is translated as incense or propagate, increase or propagate. Nun, which makes a lot of sense, the double N in that. Or how about onan? It's translated as mionamim, an observer of time, a sorcerer or enchanter. I mean, whatever that means. But the thing is, it's more concrete from the clouds, and you can see it in just the form of the word itself, onan. And possibly the fact that it is also translated as sorcerer or enchanter could have a lot to do with why Jude calls those so-called false preachers or prophets among the people clouds without water, onan, having to do with not only the clouds passing above, onan, but used as this and translated as this sorcerer or enchanter. Okay, obviously, Ronan didn't pass. Like, there was nothing about it really that made me believe that there was anything green about it. Anything that could be said to be related points towards maybe a large spreading tree. Honestly, Ronan, one offering much cover with branches like clouds, one that is vital and budding. This may have been a symbol of fertility and protection. This is likely, it likely wasn't a conifer as you can hardly hope to do much beneath its low branches. Here's what the thing is about Ronan. If you see all of those passages where Yahweh is talking about the children of Israel committing their harlotry, their idolatry, whatever loathsome behavior he's referring to, he says, in every grove and under every green tree. You're going to see for that every green tree, Ronan. This is why I'm saying that about trees, and what it more likely is, this large spreading tree. Think of Onan-like clouds passing over, the big billowy clouds. But the air oftentimes having a preeminence or large connotation to it. Ronan. So as I said, it couldn't be a conifer. You can't really do much under a conifer. Now, I know that there are a number of conifers that are actually, they're quite tall, like their stem is quite tall and most of their leaves are at the top, but conifers aren't necessarily shade trees. They're not a tree that someone is going to necessarily see as sort of this overspreading protection umbrella kind of tree. Now, some say, well, they would think of conifers as this sort of symbol of perpetual fertility, or fertility in a winter, and they would have a lot of the paganism behind this, and then that's why they use an evergreen at Christmas. I don't know. There's a lot of speculation about why the evergreen at Christmas. But there's really no proof that when he says under every Ronan, that he means evergreen or conifer. It's just not common. And he says under. He's not talking about with or around. He's not talking about presence underneath, okay? But I think it's probably entirely wrong to translate it as green. It would likely be more colored and blossoming. That whatever these feasts or the rituals that they were doing was likely under a blossoming tree, a spring blossoming large tree, big branches. Okay. The last one in green is H3892. It's la, just L, ha, la. It's a fail. It appears 6 times, is translated mostly as moist, fresh, or new. I didn't find any words that I think necessarily, besides for, I don't know if I've talked about this in the past or not, lock and lake. Because the H, in Jubru, the H is pronounced with more of a guttural they're clearing their throat sound, okay? Which oftentimes transliterates into a hard k sound. Okay. This is why I say it may be lake or lock, as we would see in Scots, lock. Because it does actually mean fresh. You look at all of the words that it's used in, and you can clearly see that it's fresh. It does mean fresh or new. What's interesting, remember what I've been telling you about putting that M prefix in front of an attribute or action word, and it kind of concretes it as a noun. The funny thing is, there is a body of water sort of to the south that the Yarden flows to. It's most commonly referred to as Yam. So that meaning a body of water, sea. Emela, the, me is the prefix to la. Perhaps. I've done a word study on that in the book, and it's the chapter on seas and lakes and so on and so forth. And you'll find it very interesting, but just keep that in mind. I actually think that the la might have a lot to do with our modern loch or lake, which we tend to call fresh water bodies. Now, the next word I approached was yellow. And I included Urak. I included it because because they list it as green or yellow. And I did put a bit of an explanation in here. Because it appears twice, juxtaposed against red, a dam, or very red, actually, a dam. So there's the possibility. Now, there may be a color. Now, however, the yellowish part of it, I'm not seeing. Okay? That's just me. I'm not seeing. I think it means more scaly. Now, if there's something funky going on somebody's skin, certainly there could be red and a yellow from pus or mucus. That's true. That's very true. In this case, I simply just decided to go with probably more scaly, because I don't know how, if you add another rock to that for Urak, you're going to get yellow from green. That's just me. Not sure. But I don't really understand this fully yet. Okay, maybe I'll have a different idea in a year. The next one was H6669. Tseb. So that's the tsa. In Jubru, it's called tsadi. And be. Tseb. It appears 3 times. It's translated as yellow. The related modern words, stick with me, possibly, maybe, zebra, zephyr, or sebum. Now, the related OBRY words, aeb, love. Now, that's the one I said was far more likely love than what we saw earlier. Also, zeb, zeb. Gold. It's translated as gold a lot. Is it gold? I don't know. We'll find out in the next document. Eb. So it's got that action at the front. Eb. Go to. Give. Come on. Ascribe. Also related is 3053. Eb. And it's translated as a burden. It is definitely an action. And it's used a lot. You'll see that you'll see it in Genesis 11. Tower of Babel. Eb, go to, let us, kind of thing. It's an action word. And it seems to definitely imply outward action. It is a word basically how should I say? Exhorting someone to, when it's used as eb from one person to another. Okay. There's also leb, blade, flame, or bright leb, used for a sword or spear. Or there's lebech with the ending, a spear's head or a flame. Okay. Now there's also tseb as in 6668 instead of 9, and it's also translated as gleam or shine. That's how it's translate instead of yellow, gleam or shine. And then finally there's reb, be, emboldened, strengthened, self, proud, or again as symbolic name, meaning whatever the 7292 through 6 actually means. Not sure. This failed because it seems to be referring more to something that's lighted or shining. Something certainly something can shine with maybe more of a yellowish or amber tint. That's true. But I took it actually more like a gray or silver glinting hair. As this word always seems to be appearing in context with hair. It could be yellow hair, right? True. But I guess the only way that you're going to know for sure is if you take this document and you check the words and you check them in context and see if you agree with me or not. And if you don't, or you do, you can email me or put something in the comment section. If you put it in the comment section, try to keep it short, because I check most of my comments on my phone, and my goodness, I cannot read a string of text that is longer than my actual phone without my eyes hurting. So we have one last listing for yellow. Okay, so the last one here is Hashmel, and on this one I'm undecided. Okay, it appears 3 times as translated as shining substance, amber, or electrum, or bronze. This is actually in the official definitions. Modern related words? I thought possibly, maybe, enamel. And now the related OBRY words could be 2363, which appears as either hush, heesh, or hush without that inserted vowel or singer. Could be hasten. But the thing is, okay, so also it appears as hasheh, translated as be silent, quiet, or still. Think about hush. It does appear a few times in which I think hush would be very appropriate contextually. There's also cachet, to lie or deceive. And then there's this word appears to be a compound of 2 simple biglyph roots, perhaps. So I did also include the second half, which would be mul, or mel, to circumcise, or also related mul, mu'al, or mal, against, front, before, or tip. Namel, or yimel, these are action words, to cut off. Timul, or timul, unto this time, or before, or heretofore. Also, shimaleh, a garment or raiment. Think of that sha at the front. Sha having the sense of things at the ground or base growing. Almost everything with sha, or even she, having to do with the ground and growing. Now, nahush, H5153, is translated as bronze, and also related is nahusheh, which is translated brass or steel. Nahash, enchanter or experience. Nahash, enchantment. Nahash, serpent. Nahashat, brass. Nahashatan, brass, serpent. Made by, like the serpent, it's the one made by Masha in the wilderness. It's called a Nahashat-un. And then there's Tahash, an animal used for hide in the tabernacle. This is weird because I believe this is the one that's actually usually translated as a badger. And there's no logical reason why. Now, someone who had the time and was interested in a serious study of OBRY and these glyphs and how they work together and their concrete nature and their abstract nature and their onomatopoeic, that's right, I said onomatopoeic nature, both phonetically and visually, could write a book just concerning the flora and fauna in the Bible. So I'm leaving this one undecided. It's a lack of comparative textual descriptive information. And, you know, the potential relatives, they're so scarce. The appearances of Hashmel are confined to Ezekiel. And every time they appear, they're accompanied by a preceding Oten, which is H5869, as in Ka'oten Hashmel, or like, not Oten, Oin. I put the, I put the wrong letter from my keyboard in, I'm sorry, it's Oin. So Oin is translated typically as fountain or spring, and eye, more commonly as eye. So there again is another good example of something that probably inherits its abstract from a concrete. Anyways, so it appears as ka'oin hashmel, or like the eye of hashmel. So if hashmel is a gem or other substance, it's very difficult to determine. Based on its possible roots of hash, often having to do with metals or something with a sheen, and mel, often bearing a cut usage. It's possible, though I'm not sure how probable, Ezekiel used this compound word he composed with oin, not O10, oin, to describe the center of, like the gleam of, as when polished metal or stone has a point of gleam or a shine or sparkle. A piece of trimmed, worked, or cut precious metal. If there were more comparatives, there may be more theories or stronger guesses. It's also somewhat possible he means the eye of a setting. In what or what it would be, I currently can't even guess. But that's one, it's going to have to remain undecided for now. Now there's purple and brown, and these two both go out pretty fast because there's really only one word that's typically translated commonly as purple, and it is aragman, and it is H713, aragman. It appears 38 times. It's kind of like that tikalat, 50 times, right? 38 times. It's translated as purple. Now, it's possible related modern words is the Proto-Indo-European aragon, which is water. The Greek argos, swift. Proto-Indo-European arg, to shine. Or the French argent, or argent, however they are pronouncing it. Again, silver. Isn't that interesting, right? Now, the related OBRY words are H710, which is aragun instead of aragmin. I combined these because when you punch in purple, you'll get two things. You'll get aragmun and aragun. So obviously the root is arag. Okay? It's also translated, like I said, purple, but it's far, far more likely woven work. Also, H707, arag, which is what? Arag. Remember, I said that's likely the root, arag. To weave, or a weave, or also arag, as in a weaver's shuttle. Those contextually work really well. There's also ma'ar, which is fretting or prickling. That's how it's translated, but it's possibly spreading. There's also na'ar, translated as made void or abhorred, but possibly dissolved. And then there is ta'ar, drawn, marked out, or also tar as in outline, resemblance, countenance. Now, just a few moments ago, I mentioned R. I was talking about words with the air, or our modern R letter in it. And you put the A, or our modern A, before it, and you get the word R. And it has quite a lot of connotations that is in, having to do with spreading. And when you put the ich at the front of it and you give it action, you again have something that is sort of broad spread, it would appear. Okay? That's why I said the na'ar, which is the N at the front, which is also an action prefix, is probably more likely dissolved. Spreading out when you dissolve. So, ta'ar, whether it's ta'ar or tar, being an outline, resemblance, countenance, it's often used like when it's said that Rahel or Rachel, that our father Jacob or Jacob fell in love with. It said that her ta'ar, was pleasant. Her form, her countenance. It's also used as a word in descriptions in Joshua as far as like tribal territories, something preceding, but sometimes just as tr. But so when you consider all of the possible roots related to this, it fails. As purple, it does. It fails. Now, here's one of the strange things. When you see it as purple, very much like the Ticolet as blue, weirdly enough, you'll often see something like say Solomon, when he was going to build the temple. He writes to Hiram, and he says, please send me men who are skilled in the working with these certain metals or woods materials, and purple and blue. And he might have also said scarlet or crimson, might have used one of those words that we went over in the red document. You know, what seems sort of strange that he would ask for workers in a color as opposed to a skill, like, a weaving. That's a skill, not a color. You see, so it failed because there's nothing either contextually that can relate it to something else that might give us the idea that's color, but in context, I mean, it does not appear to be a thing, but more a skill. So we have that arag root, weave. And that's the strongest related word there. At this point, I believe aragoon simply refers to something typified by being woven, because you have the un suffix that I've gone over quite a lot, like proceeding from the root. The great strong man, Shemashun. Shemash is the son. His mother named him that, like naming somebody Sonny. And aragmun is quite likely things woven or from, min, source. Aragmun, you see. Or the skill of making woven things or fabric. Possibly, but possibly other things as well, like perhaps tapestries, rugs, clothing, curtains, leather, rope, various materials. Far stronger that it would be related to that than the color purple. Sorry, whoopee. All right, and then the last one is brown. This word is hum. So it's ha-u-m, hum, H2345. It appears 4 times. It's translated as dark color, darkened, dark brown, or black. Modern related words, I didn't put any. I did a bit of a search. I was really unsatisfied with the very little I saw. I didn't think that they were that related. I'll probably do one more search before I post this just to make sure. The related OBRY words, for instance, hume is a wall. And then you get into basically hemar, which is translated wine, though it's probably better as mixed, a mixed drink. Also hamar as mortar, clay, mire, or a unit of volume of measurement that you'll see transliterated as homer or omer. To tell you the truth, lately I am leaning far more towards hamar having to do with clay. Clay, specifically clay. Now, those who understand the way that bricks are made know that clay is ground and combined with liquid into this substance. It's molded and baked. and you get bricks. That's essentially your common way. And I believe that what we're looking at in hamar is often clay. And I think it actually has a lot more to do with sort of a solid building material than what we might think as mortar. But the jury's still out on that, okay? I got this feeling about it based on everywhere I've seen it contextually. There's also H2655 hemare with the ending. It's translated once and as heaps. There's also the root ham. Now it's translated as hot, though it's probably better as like mixed, blended, churned. The thing is about it, why it could be seen as hot, because there are contextually a number of occurrences where it seems like it could be hot. But you think it's through heat and friction of the churning that it's hot. Okay? The root of that probably is more of the churning than anything, which of course produces friction and heat. You have chameh, anger, wrath, hamem, it's translated as heat, and hameh, sun, or the heat of the sun. Again, where does the concrete start? Where does the abstract start? You know, which came first? The concrete should always come first, of course, right? You have hama'eh, which is, in my opinion, it's accurately translated as butter. Or the churning, think of the churning of it. You have to churn butter. There's hamur, which is translated as an ass, mule. If it is from mule, it could be actually from the mixture of it, or just the fact that we're looking at a mixed animal. Now, I just spliced this in because this is the second time now that I'm aware of that my software that I use to record on has just literally paused on me at a point and not continued forward, and that's really bugging me because I can't sit and watch it the whole time. So anyways, the conclusion of this was basically an undecided. And the reason that it was undecided was because it seems like you could kind of go either way. I mean, it appears that it could possibly mean more something like a blotched coat or a blotched appearance. And in the fact that, for instance, hume is translated so often as wall, and maybe, you know, it got its name in the abstract from whom, being a blotched appearance, perhaps a stone wall, the fact that you might have various stones in it and it would have that appearance, maybe. However, the other side of that coin is that if I'm right, and ham might have more to do, or hamar, I'm sorry, with clay, then it could very possibly have a brown connotation to it. So that one could go either way. At 4 occurrences, it's not too much is heavily hinged upon it. So with that, I'm going to wrap. I want to remind you, at the end of all of these documents, I, of course, try to list as many words as I could think of things in nature that had these certain colors. It's not exhaustive. I don't vet those. But it's just kind of trying to provide the idea that in nature there are repetitive, naturally occurring things that are colored a certain way. And that's probably something that we should be looking for more than anything as far as a color. If we want, to define a color of something. And I'll tell you what, it would not surprise me a bit if in the future I found that there were words in OBRY, in the Bible, that were far more convincing as colors as we understand them today than the words that I've gone over so far. So the next and final word study in this series of this season will be, as I said, on metallics and gemstones. I don't know how long that will take to produce that study because there are so many assumptions that we have concerning metallics, gold, silver, brass, bronze, things like that, and gems, as in their value. Remember, we've all been deceived concerning what is valuable and inherently valuable and why. So we're going to see how that goes. And I'm very excited to see what that one in particular produces. So until then, I hope to put out one more New Testament concepts before then. And until then, I hope everyone is very well.